yet another episode on the Hacktivist podcast. As humanists, we are concerned with the promotion of critical thinking and human well-being. As usual, we'll be discussing interesting topics from Ghana and Africa, the rest of the world, and in science and technology. Today is the 3rd of October. My name is Monica and I'm joined by the lovely
Roslyn,
Nicole,
Samuel,
Mauli,
and Michael.
Mauli is joining us today for the very first time.
Yay!
And he's a Free Thoughts group member, and he's also very passionate about Mugabe.
In Ghana news, 5 Ghanaians were confirmed dead this week on pilgrimage to Hajj. And this comes as the world is still reeling from news about almost 800 people who were also killed in a stampede, or to put it bluntly, in Saudi Arabia. Now, criticism has gone beyond Ghana, and I think Iran has been the most vociferous of the critics, but everything shows that the Hajj has not been managed well over the years, and steps should be taken to curb these deaths, which are very, very unwelcome and very, very disturbing to citizens around the world, even though they are Muslims, but they are still Ghanaians. So steps should be taken by the Saudi government to curb these problems in the future.
So I'll say something before anyone else says it, and I hope we don't dwell on it. Yes, it's true. If there was no religion, there will be no Islam. If there was no Islam, there will be no pilgrimage to Mecca. And if there was no pilgrimage to Mecca, probably 700 more people would be alive this week.
No,
Fine.
Not necessarily true.
Probably.
Not
But fine.
necessarily.
Okay.
Before you guys go
Okay,
on,
but we don't have to dwell on that fact.
We have to, because it's a very open statement.
Exactly.
I mean, you are saying that in the absence of religion, all will be fine and nice. But no.
I didn't
No, that's not what he's saying at all.
I didn't
But
say
then just to
anything
clarify, at least 5 Ghanaians we're talking about died from convulsion and malaria.
Yeah, convulsion
right?
and malaria,
Which
yeah.
It's quite strange.
It's very
But-
strange, very strange. I think the Saudi government appears to be
So
reducing the numbers. Yeah, I think they appear to be reducing the numbers. Because Iran this morning revised the number of their dead to 400. Yes.
What?
Yeah,
From
even
140
though,
before?
yeah, everyone knows Iran has
Of course,
motivations here, but I think, yeah, even with the convulsion and malaria thing, they are still deaths anyway, but yeah, I don't think it's well good.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we can also all admit that it's unfortunate that this happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
absolutely.
Of course.
But it's also unfortunate the kind of comments that we hear from the Muslims themselves. Talking about martyrdom and none of that. It's very, very unfortunate when I hear unfortunate news. I'm about to feel sad for 717 deaths, and then I hear a comment like, "They are all in heaven. I wish I was there too."
Wow.
Yeah.
You see.
Wow.
I think you should still feel sad for people who died, even though other people are making such statements.
Well,
If they're feeling like they're rejoicing in
They are
heaven,
rejoicing.
how do
They
you
feel like
sorry
they
for
feel
them?
like this is the thing. They feel like dying in Hajj or dying doing God's work is an automatic matter, and they feel left out. That their friends have died and gone to heaven and they are still here.
But it's because they don't know
how-
the insidious effect of religion you were
Yeah,
talking about.
but it's because they don't know better, right? That's why they feel that way. And actually, it's because of such people that we make this podcast. Or we are trying to help people who don't know to at least be a little bit more informed. So I mean, yeah, it's crazy that some people say, "I wish I was there. I wish I could have been martyred," because they think that they're going straight to heaven. We know that they are not. It's good for us to make such podcasts and to try to inform them. So even though some people are making ignorant statements, I still think that even for the people who make those ignorant statements and are living, I feel sorry for them. How much more those who died in the stampede or those who have been irreversibly injured. So I think that they deserve a fair amount of our sympathy.
I think it's sad all around what happened in Saudi Arabia, but in other news, Hindu family, Hindus killing
A Muslim
a Muslim for
eating
eating meat. So it's like all around this week, it's one bullshit after another. It's just becoming too much. It's just becoming too much.
And for some, I came across an article. I didn't really read it, but about this pilgrimage incident, saying that the Muslims, the blacks amongst them were not immediately. They did not have emergency care after this happened. They attended more to the Arabs, like white people.
And then right after the
and then they blamed the black Muslims.
Black Muslims were
for being the
blamed
cause
for
of
right after the prince, I believe.
That's true. Blackness is a crime everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, and I wonder
Even in the
what
Holy Land,
the African Muslims have to say about that.
Apparently, the black Muslims were not organized and they didn't read instructions. That's why. I think it goes.
But if you look at the numbers of the deaths, actually, it seems like Iran had very huge numbers and so on. So it seems a bit skewed.
So just
African.
No, they are clearly just being racist.
clearly.
And another article saying that an ambassador is saying that the aged should not be allowed to go to a pilgrimage.
Shouldn't be a future measure.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The weak, the aged.
Okay.
The next thing they do
I have a problem
That's also
I feel
against the Quran, the teachers of the Quran. Everybody's supposed to go.
So you can't just say
There's some
funny that I'm defending the
Saudi
Quran.
officials. They should do more to handle the crowd.
Yeah.
The amount of people.
It's an engineering problem more.
Yeah.
It's more of an engineering problem.
More of a problem.
See, they tried to solve this issue back in the day. Like even this thing was not supposed to happen during this act. They closed down two of the pathways, and then they put a sign there, giving them a timetable of when they should be using the available paths. But apparently that's where the black issue came in. Nobody was reading the instructions, so everybody decided to go use the remaining pathways at that time.
The Saudi Arabians, the Saudi officials should.
And still, they should have actually
because
been
they
there
should
to
have been there to tell them.
Yeah.
Yes, because when this is not the first time, this is not the second time, this is not the third time. And this is not even the worst one.
Yeah.
This is not even the worst
Yeah,
one. There's one that
5 years or so.
numbered in the thousands. Yes. So they've been trying to solve the problem.
I don't think they're getting it right.
But I don't understand this. When a stampede happens, maybe something scares somebody and then they run. Okay, but what could have happened before a stampede? What are they running away from?
One guy who survived it. He's saying they were like forming this group in this party we were talking. Like it became a packed crowd. It was supposed to move forward, but at the point it stopped.
Yeah.
And now they kept pushing back from the front. So he was with his family, but he realized they were gradually being separated. Yeah. So he had to edge his way to the sites where the barricades are, and he was saying after the barricades there are some tents, special tents for these 5-star hotels, where like I think people they lounge and do things before they go. Now these guys didn't open the tents for the people who were being squeezed out of them. Yeah, so he said he actually had to step on people who were also pulling that white garment of his down, but he managed to get onto one of the tents. That's what saved him. The tents itself weren't open. So I think the Saudi officials have a lot to account for with this tragedy. I think organization, everything was very bad.
In African news, Robert Mugabe, President of Zimbabwe, in his UN speech declared that Africa is not gay, or Africans are not gay. This is weird because I personally know a lot of gay Africans, and I don't think he can make a blanket statement like that. I understand that he was trying to make a political point on the West trying to impose its ideals and values on Africa, but I don't see how being gay is an ideal or value that is not universal.
And he in turn trying to impose his ideas.
Yes, I don't
speaking in the capacity of being a
representative
of the
Africa.
continent.
Of the continent.
Okay, so before we go further, I want to zero in on exactly what he said. He said that first he said that rights must be respected everywhere, and then he said that we resist attempts to impose new ideas from other places that are considered rights over there. And among them, I'm going to proffer that he meant the rights to marry for same-sex couples and stuff like that. So after he said that, that's when he said, "We Africans are not gay," which is cute on a bumper sticker, but really it's kind of ridiculous.
I find it striking that our leaders have managed to turn a fundamental human rights issue into something of an East-West divide, or West imposing some outside deals on us. But we are just losing focus of the real issues on ground, which are constitutional and which I think states that every human being has the right to live and be able to prosper also. So I don't think Mugabe can speak for all of us. As evidence that we are all Africans and we are all support gay rights, I think I speak for all of us. So yes. I don't think Mugabe has the right itself to speak like that. Maybe for Zimbabweans, but not for all Africans.
Not even for
Zimbabweans. No, but I'll say that his point about saying new ideas being imposed on us. First of all, homosexuality has never been a new idea. It's been with mankind since time immemorial. Secondly, for him to say like Africans are not gays, it's not like I don't know how to put it, as in gay people it's like a disease or something that we all catch or something like that, and we are the ones who don't have it. So if the West have it, then homosexuality is biological. So basically some population, some part of the population would be not expected to, but would be gay. So, or let me say LGBT. So for him to like make it a blanket statement, it was just not. And he did mention things about human rights in his speech, and yet doesn't consider the right to same-sex marriage or the right to be attracted to people of the same sex as a human right. It's like he's contradicting himself.
I think he should re-educate himself on these issues.
Yes, and that's what when they say the West imposing ideals on us. Sorry to cut you there. Yeah. And even if the West came to tell us something, instead of taking a particular look at the topic and then doing research on it, so far all the arguments against homosexuality among the African communities have not been anything scientific, or they haven't come out with anything for me to even think twice about my stand. Like, they all just keep saying, "Oh no, we are just not gay, we are just not." They are not really giving us any valid points on why we shouldn't have the rights for
a little humorous ad hominem. He said all this while wearing a suit and
I was just going to say that. The suit he was wearing, where does he think it came from? So
while speaking into a mic, he probably got there on a plane.
Now, even if homosexuality was a Western idea, which it is not, what is wrong with it? Why do we adopt cars, televisions, the internet? Right.
Democracy.
And then we draw the line. Why do we draw the line over there? I think it's something worth thinking about. In world news, at the UN, Saudi Arabia is insisting that the United Nations keeps LGBT rights out of its development goals. Saudi Arabia is making this demand because it believes that these LGBT freedoms run counter to Islamic law. This isn't the first time that Saudi Arabia has come out against something like this. International conventions on the rights of women and children have passed everywhere else in the world, but been failed to be ratified in Saudi Arabia for the same reason that it's against Islam to say that women are equal to men. So just a bit of a background. The global goals are the children of the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals are supposed to be evaluated and completed by this year, I believe. And now the world is trying to figure out what to do next. And so the UN, at the behest of some member states, tried to include protections for LGBT to spread around the world for the next 15 years. But Saudi Arabia, it looks like, has successfully been able to keep this language out of the development goals.
Well, I think it's funny, really, because I think there are countless things which are against Islamic law. And limiting the argument to the Islamic law thing, I think it's ludicrous, really. And I don't know why the Saudis keep trying to regress our societies or the world towards the more inclusive climate that we are all embracing. I think they need to look at their own human rights and have a really good debate themselves, because you can't come to the stage, like the world stage, and come say such things like they are against or they are contrary to Islamic laws. There are a lot of things which are contrary to Islamic laws, but that doesn't mean that people should be exempted from having a right to live. So I don't think the Saudis have really got this right, and no, they shouldn't be really heeded to, on the world stage.
I like that argument, because I think the next thing that Saudis will be asking us to ban will be Domudo pork. So you guys be on the watch out for that.
No, I don't think that's how they are looking at this issue. For them, it's more about if the UN, right, is supposed to be a world community, right, then it should have a set of values that are consistent with each member's, way of life, or that is shared values. So I am, pro LGBT, and I'm a liberal, but part of being liberal is also respecting other people's, way of life. You may not necessarily agree with them, but if it doesn't threaten your way of life, I think you should respect that. Like how the Kenyan president responded to President Obama when he was in Kenya. That yes, it is true that some people are gays or lesbians, and that Americans have finally decided to respect that right. But it doesn't mean that they too, as Kenyans, right, should jump on board. If majority of Kenyans feel that it's not consistent with their values, and they don't have to. Now, the same as in the case of Saudi Arabia, is a Muslim nation. We cannot agree on that, at least. And I don't know Islam very well, but I think that Islam doesn't, at least overtly, promote homosexuality. So if Saudi Arabians think that what the UN is imposing on its members is not consistent with their way of life, at least he as this a leader should have the it's okay for him to voice his disagreement with that.
I think you made a very important point. However, there's a bit of a contradiction in accepting or being accommodating of somebody's or a state's way of life, if that way of life also infringes upon its own citizens' way of life, possibly. So there's a bit of a contradiction there, where those fundamental human rights are being abused, and yet that should be more acceptable than actually their religion or respect for their religion. And also there should be some kind of common ground as to what we tend to be, human rights. Yes, exactly. And accommodating various religious beliefs makes it a very murky conversation where we as a global community will be unable to determine what qualifies as.
But that's the reality. So sorry, but that's the reality. People are religious. You are not, but some people are religious, and they think within the context of their religion. It's what defines them as people. Yeah. So for some Muslim countries, it's not just a religion, but that's also seeping into their political life. Mm-hmm. The laws that they pass are consistent with their religious views, and that's what you have in the case of Saudi Arabia. And I'm not saying that in a case where majority of people think that A is the right way, it means that we should all go that way. Of course, we have to respect the right of LGBT folks in these countries, but a majority of these people, right, who make decisions as to what laws work for them, do not,
At the expense of
At the expense of-
marginalizing minorities
Yes,
in their
and
countries.
as a humanist, to say that I will not say that because I want to respect their religion doesn't mean that I'm going to respect their right to abuse someone's life. I can't respect
Okay,
that.
and-
I'm
and-
going
and-
to respect
and
their
just-
religion.
just to
I
add-
don't think. I
That is
think
so
when
true,
the
right.
UN is in. Personally, one, I don't think the UN is the right institution having this conversation. It's a sham. Two.
Why?
Why? No.
Do I need to convince you that the UN is a
No,
sham?
you-
Do I really need to convince you that
No,
the
no.
UN is just a sham?
So wait, that I
don't
think that's a good point that you just made. So then, if that's the case, 2 points. There's a way to go about this. After all, the International Convention on the Rights of Women and Children, they've been ratified. They've become codified in the UN. Even say what you would about the UN, but still, there are member states that haven't signed it and that don't respect it.
Let's talk about
If
the
Saudi Arabia does not agree with this new LGBT language, after all, the LGBT language is not saying gay people should have the right to be married. All it's saying that they should have rights, they should be respected. Saudi Arabia is against this because they want to be able to continue to execute people who they think that listen, and this is a fundamental violation of human
Which,
rights.
by the way, is on the increase.
No,
I mean, they've had their
those
most
ones are
number of
wrong.
executions
Right.
this year.
exactly.
Right. So
They've
if
advertised for executions, and besides Iran,
So just kick them out.
they don't
Just
agree
kick
with
them
it,
out, period. That's simple.
that's what
Kick
I'm
them
saying.
out.
So if they
Kick
don't
them out.
agree,
Kick them out, impose sanctions. But then you
hold on. You don't have to kick them out, and you don't have to make it. It doesn't have to be.
The UN, this sham to give.
It doesn't have to be-
This sham organization should give them sanctions as well.
What?
It doesn't have to be, what do you call it? After all, if they include the language, not every country is going to ratify it, especially most African countries. It will take a long time to ratify it. So they can say they disagree with it, but to prevent that language from entering the charter, knowing the powerful effect that it can have on other places that are not Saudi Arabia, I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
unfair
We'll
to
look at
gay people
Saudi Arabia.
around the world.
The
And
big
you
Gay
are
people
aware
around
that,
the world.
you are aware that
Yeah, very good point.
Saudi Arabia recently was promoted to the UN. Is it
Human Rights
Human
Council.
Rights
Council?
because
Yes.
of oil.
You are aware of that.
Yes.
So let's not have this conversation, please. Like it sounds like
No, it doesn't mean that it
No, it
was the
doesn't.
best decision they ever made.
I think
But
they
it's an
only-
example
they
of
only-
what-
So
They only got up with him because it was on rotation. At least that's
good, good. So a
That's
good,
what-
yeah.
good way to start, right? It's not to promote such countries.
And,
Make it clear to them.
really, I think you are limiting this issue to sovereignty and national
No,
security.
no, it's not about sovereignty. No,
Yeah, that's what I think.
You are encouraging you. I want you to do something. You are doing the opposite, and I am rewarding you for doing the opposite. And then here I am, talking about how you are not doing the right thing.
You said,
So what then
you
do
said
I do?
majority of Saudi's population, the lawmakers.
That's what they say. That's what they say, and it's right.
The Saudi leader is speaking for the Saudi nation, right? In saying that they don't think this agenda should be given on board. Now, this is a fundamental human rights issue. I think this issue has been bandied about for quite some time now. It is a human rights issue, not a national sovereignty issue. You understand? There are
Yes,
Saudi
yes.
citizens who are gay. You
Yes.
understand? And if these guys are going to be executed, we don't want that. That is simply what we are
I
saying.
also don't want that. No, you don't understand me. I'm not saying that the actions that the Saudi government versus on LGBT folks is right. No, it's not. But the actions that the UN takes is what promotes such a behavior.
No,
When you reward such a behavior with a seat on the UN Human Rights Council,
Yeah.
which is another matter. But I think Saudi Arabia being a beacon for the Islamic world, and most countries look up to them, and even people have tried to copy this Wahhabi form of Islam. I think this is very, very pernicious thing to say on the world stage, because other countries, it will not surprise me that they also told the line, because Saudi has said this and has mentioned that Islamic law thing,
Yeah, you knew how to do
boxing the argument into a different
into a religious and to make
Yeah,
life
boxing
hard for
argument
For
very, very
Muslims in Iran, to
Very
make
hard,
life
even to
hard
people
for Muslims
who were on
in
the fence
Egypt,
on this issue.
to make life hard for
In
Muslims
Africa,
in Malaysia.
everywhere.
But I want to
That Saudi Arabia has said this.
I want to make
But it appears
It's
that the
very,
UN
very
likes Saudi Arabia very much, so they reward them with this. UN Human Rights,
Which was on rotation, right?
was on rotation.
Yeah.
So
everybody has to do it, but
Everybody has to do
but because it's on rotation, so everybody gets it.
So
Try.
Saudi Arabia also gets a free pass.
that's the way it works. But
Alright.
I just wanted to make this point. I think that the world is moving so fast into the future that within my predictions within 30 years, this wouldn't be much of an issue.
Yeah,
I mean, on paper, a lot of the criminalization of homosexual behavior would still exist on paper. But I think that right now, in 2015, in 2045, we will hear that Saudi Arabia has executed a gay man, and the whole world will be up and out. I mean, that's how.
Yeah,
that's probably what it's going to be, and then eventually it's just going to dry out.
That's what I hope for.
And stop.
All right, cool. Anyway, I also think so that as the world progresses, right, we become more liberal, and that what happens in Saudi Arabia will concern somebody here in Accra. Understand that, but at the moment, how things stand, you must understand also that the Saudis also feel that the majority of people do not like that, and that if they are representing their people, right, at the UN, they cannot agree to things that majority of people do not, agree with. It's that simple. I'm not saying that what they're doing is right, but they are representing their people. So at least as a leader, he has that obligation, not a right, an obligation to represent the views of his people. And he's telling you that, listen, what you are imposing on me, right, it's not right for my people, because most of them do not like it. That's what it's all about.
Well, the UN...
and if the UN disagrees, right, the UN will do the right thing.
When you say they don't like the fact that there's homosexuality exists in their country, so they like that homosexuals should be executed.
Maybe that's not about that. It appears so. It appears so, right? Are there people protesting about LGBT being killed and whatnot in Saudi Arabia? I'm not saying that it makes things right. Please understand me that for Homie, but you cannot also reward bad behavior and expect good behavior from them.
But I think Saudi saying and even insisting that UN remove LGBT rights from its development goals. I mean, I think.
What do we expect from Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, but I don't think you should even say such a thing, because we all need this kind of elevation of our societies, and I think these voices they are pulling us back.
This is all politics, really.
That's true.
Yeah,
if you really mean this right, it will take concrete actions. But this is all for politics.
But of course, it has to be ratified, and these countries are opposing them. They are just being blocks in the way of these fundamental rights.
All right.
There is flowing water on Mars. New findings from NASA's orbiter has shown the strongest evidence yet that liquid water flows on the planet Mars. This finding also puts a strong case in the camp of those who have the hypothesis that there could be life on the planet Mars. But I'm wondering why the connection between water and life on Mars. Does it have anything to do with getting wet?
I would say that, the saying that water is life. Basically, from what I know about abiogenesis and all that, somehow there's a lot of evidence showing that life, as we know it, the origins of life could have started from water. And the finding of water on Mars, or the possibility of water on Mars, because I don't really understand this. I didn't really read much about the article on that, because from what I read about the Mars finding is that they found evidence of striations of some kind on the surface, which show that there could have been water on Mars, and basically that the erosion effect of the water, the presence of the water, is what has caused that, and therefore the water could be found, probably has receded to a certain area, and that's where we are most likely to find where the source is. But whether the water is there or not, I'm not sure they've actually found the water. It's just they found the possibility, a high possibility that the water could be on the planet, and therefore it could have started the process for the origins of life.
Yeah, this is a most significant development because even though there's a possibility that perhaps there is life on Mars, this also shows that life can be supported on Mars. And in the future, when we have any plans on perhaps having any research or even moving there, we can be supported in one way or the other, since water is very essential. So this, nevertheless, is a very, very significant finding, and it will widen our knowledge as far as science is concerned, and our universe is also concerned.
So
They're aliens, is what you're saying.
Yeah, perhaps.
I find myself in a minority. A lot of people are looking at this and saying, "Oh wow, that means that Mars could hold life." Blah blah blah. People are already talking about terraforming and growing food for possible human colonies there. But I'm of the opinion that Mars is actually the future of what the Earth could look like. That Mars used to have vibrant oceans. That's my opinion, and lakes and water and possibly even life. And has become a shadow of its former self now, and so now we're seeing the dying embers of
Mars.
Water
Or
on Mars.
it could be the opposite.
Yeah, of course, but most people
sense
think it's the
that
opposite. I'm just saying, I find
It's
myself
very
in
scary, really.
the striations that you're talking about, right? The evidence that they found, the erosion, it comes from the fact that they believe that in warmer months, in the summer months of Mars, they found there must have been flowing water there.
Exactly.
Right now, it must be frozen.
Yes.
But
yes.
in the summer months, it was liquid water. But like I said, I believe that we are looking at a planet in its dying embers. And if we want to search for a place with life, we should look outside our solar system and then perhaps think about ways to reach those far distances.
So have glass empty kind of guy.
Exactly.
No, but then
I see what you did there.
it's good to know that at least possibility of life existing outside the Earth, is open, and that that in itself is good news.
Yeah.
A lot of good news. Like it's actually the best news we've had in a very, very long time. This is actually the most progress we've made as humans in in answering the question of why we are if we are alone in the universe.
Right.
If what you're saying is true, right? Or let's say that's true. That means that people life used to exist on Mars, at least.
Possibly.
So that's very good news.
Yes.
If that's not true too, then at least the possibility of life existing on Mars too is also there. So either way, it's all good news.
Good news.
And they probably moved to Earth.
Probably. The Martian atmosphere is 95.3% carbon dioxide.
Yes.
And it's a clear indicator of where Earth is heading.
Right.
Because our carbon dioxide levels are rising.
Especially the ones that's coming from the sea.
Yes, our carbon dioxide levels are rising. Nitrogen levels are about the same. Oxygen will be going down. So basically, you are creating a Martian environment.
But global warming denies probably say, you know what? That there's no evidence that the life on Mars caused this, and it could be
A natural thing
thing.
that will happen with or without humans.
But I think that given how much progress we are making, right, in exploring the universe and technology and stuff, I think by the time we get to where Mars is, if that's what we are heading, we would have
colonized the universe.
Found a way. Even 5 years back, thinking that humans would find is it Kepler?
Yeah.
Yes. Today we know Kepler exists, right? That's interesting. Technology, grows exponentially. Yeah. So in the next 10 years, things that will happen will just blow your mind away. Mm-hmm. And I think by that then we'd have done amazing progress in
if we don't destroy our planet faster than we discover new things, then you're absolutely right.
I think technology would outpace our rate of development.
That's a very optimistic view.
It always does.
Because even now we have communities of people who make apps. That wouldn't have been possible.
No, it always does. That one is for constant.
We'll see about it. Someone gave me a statistic that if the entire history of the Earth was in 24 hours, humans would only have existed for 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And in the last minute, we've destroyed over 50% of the world's forest. That's how quickly we are.
It's because we made so much progress that last.
And it has been completely unmitigated. In fact, for a long time, we didn't even know that we were making greenhouse gases that were destroying the planet.
We didn't even know.
That's how. That's how.
So right now we have the tools to measure.
And yet there are people who are resisting the change.
They are the minority. So the good news is that they're the minority, and that as we progress, right, we will take more action in protecting the.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. And then also, I just want to bring things to what Wilson said earlier about abiogenesis. I think it's an amazing thing because it strikes a critical blow to creationists everywhere, in every religion.
They'll have to rewrite
if we can somehow find out how organic chemistry using water developed life on an extraterrestrial body.
Even if it's plant life
on an extraterrestrial body, that would shake a lot of religions to the core. But then, of course, knowing religious people, they'll find a way to change.
The devil is something mankind.
Right.
The devil is awake.
The logical fallacy for this episode is the straw man fallacy, and it basically is to misrepresent somebody's argument by either misquoting it or oversimplifying what the person is saying in order to discredit their argument. So, for example, if someone were to say, we need to be more progressive about gay rights and not discriminate against the LGBT community, and another person's response was, but if we were all part of the LGBT community, how would our species thrive? That is an example of a straw man because the person has totally misrepresented and oversimplified the initial person's statement.
Okay, so this week's quote comes from Haile Selassie, and is this: so we must become bigger than we have been, more courageous, greater in spirit, larger in our outlook. We must become members of a new race, overcoming petty prejudice, owing our ultimate allegiance not to nations but to our fellow men within the human community. I like this very much. It succinctly captures who I am as a person, in that I see myself as part of the human race. Of course, I happen to live in this shitty country called Ghana now, but I think that we should look at ourselves as people, and when we discuss the Saudi Arabia issue too, that's what applies there, in that being Ghanaian doesn't mean that you don't have a say in how people elsewhere are treated. Some values transcend, nation boundaries. I mean, these countries are, it changes. Today, Ghana means, this area, but a year from now, it could mean that, Nigeria, Benin, wherever, together is Ghana. So you should try to aspire to something bigger than these artificial borders. And I think this quote, captures that for me.
So that's it for this episode of the Hacktivist Podcast. As always, you can find us on YouTube or on Facebook as Hacktivist Podcast, or we'd like to hear from you. So send us an email on hacktivistpodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet with the handle @Hacktivist. That's HAGTIVIST. And remember to think for yourself and care for others. Thank you.